And is it working? Let's see. Yes. And Sally, did you want to say a few
Yes.
words first?
Thank you and welcome members and guests. Buena Vista Audubon honors and acknowledges the Payum-Quechum, also known as the Luiseno, who are of the land that the Buena Vista Audubon Nature Center stands. The other tribal nations in San Diego County are the Kumeyaay, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. And we pledge to work with our indigenous neighbors in partnership to steward these lands secured by BVAS for protection and restoration. If you'd like to read our full land acknowledgement and learn our action plan, check out our website. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So tonight I'd like to introduce our speaker, Cathy Handzel. Cathy is the Vice President of the San Diego County chapter of the International Dark Sky Association. This is the leading organization that's combating light pollution worldwide. Growing up, Cathy always loved the experience of nighttime and gazing up at the moon and stars in the sky. And she began actively researching light pollution in 2015 after she noticed excessive light trespass at her home from streetlights and neighbors' lighting. Since becoming an IDA member in 2018, Cathy is actively engaged with other dark sky advocates, both locally and nationally. So tonight she's going to be discussing light pollution and its effect on wildlife. She is working with local Audubon chapters to develop a Lights Out initiative in San Diego County. The goal is to reduce local light pollution to allow birds, bats, and insects to travel safely at night. And she's going to let us know how we can play a part in helping to reduce light pollution. So throughout the presentation, if you have questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat, and I will be asking them as time permits or save them at the end, depending on the question. And I am going to mute everybody. So Cathy, you're going to have to unmute yourself after I mute everybody. So please join me in welcoming Cathy. Okay.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Joni. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, and again, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's a privilege to be here. I appreciate it. So the International Dark Sky Association, also known as the IDA, was formed in 1988 and has led the global movement to protect the night from light pollution. Our impact spans more than 51 countries with members, advocates, and dark sky places on every inhabited continent. We truly are an international organization. Our vision, the night sky filled with stars, is celebrated and protected around the world as a shared heritage, benefiting all living things. I'm also a member of the Julian Dark Sky Network. The Julian Dark Sky Network was formed by a local astronomer and IDA member named Doug Solisey with the goal of preserving Julian's dark skies where they can still see the Milky Way. They also had the goal of becoming a certified international dark sky community, and they achieved that goal this past May 2021. I was introduced to the JDSN by a woman named Megan Peralta, who I met at an IDA conference in Tucson, Arizona, and I would like to credit her for a number of slides in this presentation that we previously had done together. So thank you, Megan. Shout out to her. If you weren't aware, San Diego County is home to 3 certified international dark sky places. That includes Borrego Springs, which was the world's 2nd international dark sky community back in 2009. We have the Anza Borrego Desert State Park. And as I mentioned, Julian became the 30th dark sky community in the world. So what's next? Fallbrook actually has a team of dark sky advocates, and they're looking to apply to become an international dark sky community. There's Valley Center Dark Sky Advocates working in Valley Center to protect their dark skies. and they happen to be near Palomar Observatory, so it's very important. Potrero had some interest, and they're also interested in protecting their night skies. And I also put the city of San Diego on there for good measure, because why not? Anything's possible, right? The IDA and the Audubon Society formed a strategic partnership in 2020. Audubon's mission includes conservation of critical bird habitat, including the sky. And this was a natural intersection with IDA's focus on protecting the night sky and reducing light pollution. This partnership expands efforts to return the night sky to a more natural state, and it also fosters collaboration to protect the night sky for both birds and people. For example, our local chapters are doing this presentation tonight. And following the presentation, as Joni mentioned, really hoping that our local San Diego County IDA chapter can partner with our Audubon chapters to implement a lights out program to protect birds during their seasonal migration. By turning off excess lighting, we can help to provide migrating birds safe passage between their nesting and wintering grounds. So what is light pollution? Many of us have heard, or most of us have heard of air pollution, water, light pollution. A pollutant can be defined as a foreign substance that makes something impure. A pollutant contaminates the environment. It's something that's not naturally occurring. Well, artificial light is a foreign substance in our natural nighttime environment. This light pollution is contaminating and destroying the experience of natural darkness. And it's not just for humans, it's for wildlife and plants as well. So we're going to watch a quick video.
It's more than 1 billion cars burning 2 billion headlights. It's argon gas and less than an inch of tungsten metal swinging naked from the ceiling. It's beautiful, at a distance, and blinding the rest of the time. It's sealed glass tubes, mercury, phosphor powder, free electrons and ions bumping and vibrating and dully humming. It's 1898 to 1959, the discovery of neon to the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. It's the Las Vegas Strip. It's the Sunset Strip. It's strip clubs and stadiums. It's streetlights and streetcars. It's malls. It's your work. It's outside your bedroom window keeping you from sleeping. It's insomnia. It's the slow extinction of animals and insects dependent on darkness for migration and mating. It's the device you obsessively check as you walk down the street, raising your dopamine levels while reducing your melatonin. It's a carcinogen. It's one of the reasons women in developed nations are 5 times more likely to have breast cancer. It's looking down instead of up. It's 2/3 of the global population, 5 billion people, unable to truly see the night sky. It's the indifferent blinking out of 200 billion stars. To learn more about light pollution, its impact on our environment and health, check out darksky.org.
So light pollution is actually composed of 4 different components. We have glare, which most of us are familiar with, light clutter, sky glow, and light trespass, which is light falling where it is not wanted or needed. Glare is excessive brightness that causes visual discomfort. This image shows a glaring light, but it's also a really good example of light trespass. Imagine if this was your bedroom and you were there trying to sleep with all that light coming in. And imagine if you were a bird and you were wanting to nest in this tree. That's not going to work out very well, is it? Light trespass is light falling where it is not intended, wanted, or needed. For example, in your neighbor's home, you actually see that none of their light is on their own house. It's all on the neighbor's house. And although this image is comical, it's really not so funny when a neighbor's light is spilling across the property lines and it ruining the enjoyment of your own home or yard. An improperly aimed or shielded light can negatively affect the quality of life. Sky glow is the brightening of the night sky over an inhabited area. And light clutter is bright, confusing, excessive number of lights grouped together. It really makes it unsafe for drivers and pedestrians. So why should I care? You told me a little bit about light pollution, but there's so many other things happening in the world. Do I really have time to worry about this? Well, actually, light pollution affects so many different things. Solving light pollution has a significant impact. Light pollution affects us all. It harms wildlife, the environment, and human health. It wastes enormous amounts of energy, which can impact climate change. The night sky is also important to our human and cultural heritage. You think about all the art, literature, folklore, traditions that are related to the night sky, and we see Vincent van Gogh starry nights everywhere right now. This image is so popular. But do you think he would have been able to conceive painting this picture if he lived today? What about if he lived in the city of San Diego? Probably not, right? So light pollution is also a safety issue. The ever-increasing brightness and glare of nighttime lighting not only causes visual discomfort, it impacts our ability to navigate safely as drivers and pedestrians. And if you think about those super bright headlights out on the road, that's also light pollution. And those bright lights are what? Supposed to making it easier to drive, but it impacts everyone else in a negative way. Addressing the light pollution problem in San Diego County will enable wildlife and the environment to thrive naturally. It'll protect us from harmful exposure to light at night. It will reduce energy waste, save money, and protect our planet. It will allow us to enjoy the beauty and magnificence of the night sky and our Milky Way galaxy. It will eliminate blight and unsightly glare in our communities. And it can increase safety and security with better visibility from neighbor-friendly lighting. If you think about it, if everybody's blinds are closed to keep everyone else's lights out, there's really no neighborhood watch. Nobody's watching. Light pollution is energy waste. If we look at this image here, we all recognize this as a senseless, wasteful use of water. It's also a waste of money, literally, money going down the drain. But we don't think the same of energy. We can't touch it, we can't feel it. So it's not tangible like water. So we don't think of energy as being wasted when we shine light up into the sky. But if you look at this picture here that shows dark sky friendly lighting what you need, when you need it, no brighter than necessary, and having it fully shielded to point down, this is really using your energy wisely. If light escapes up into space and into neighbors' homes, you're wasting it. So as far as energy and light goes, use it, don't lose it. Dark sky friendly lighting is the same as neighbor friendly lighting, environment friendly lighting, and wildlife friendly lighting. And guess what? It's also pocketbook friendly lighting. This is a postcard that the IDA developed based on data from the US Department of Energy back in 2011. So these numbers are probably low compared to what's happening today, even with the compensation of reduced energy use with LED lighting. It's estimated that about 35% of light is wasted, either being unshielded or poorly aimed. And this is residential lighting only. About 15 million tons of CO2 emitted each year. It would take about 600 million trees to be planted to offset that carbon emission. This is really wasteful and it's harming climate. So resolving light pollution helps climate as well. Light pollution also harms wildlife. And here's another example of an old globe light, just shining light everywhere. There's no way you'd be able to see stars standing next to a light like this. So migrating birds or hatchlings can actually die because of their interaction with artificial light. Billions of birds migrate each year, and large numbers of those birds are killed directly or indirectly because of artificial light. Many species of birds migrate at night, and they use moonlight and starlight to guide them. Light from urban centers can cause them to stray off course, wander into cities, sometimes confusing them so much that they fly into buildings and die. In addition, artificial light can disrupt their seasonal cycles, causing them to migrate too early or too late. Light pollution has also been found to cause birds to choose poor nesting sites and miss out on finding mates. Researchers at Cal Poly found that light pollution causes birds to begin nesting as much as a month earlier than normal compared to open environments such as grasslands or wetlands. This mismatch in timing can result in hungry chicks hatching before their food is readily available. That can decrease their chance of survival. This is a wonderful graphic from Tracy Aviary, the Conservation Science Program. They're located in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'll start over at the image on the left, which explains that, like insects flying to a light can actually attract birds into a town. And then when they get there, they exhaust themselves navigating these unfamiliar spaces. In this confused state, they can strike lit and reflective windows. It's estimated that between 365 million and 1 billion birds die in these bird strikes or collisions each year, and that's in North America alone. Songbirds tend to migrate at night. There tends to be fewer weather events, making for calmer skies. And migrating takes a lot of work. There's a lot of flapping going on, right? So the cooler temperatures of nighttime make it more comfortable for birds when they're pumping their wings. And moving at night helps songbirds avoid raptors like hawks and falcons, which are migrating during the day. San Diego is within the Pacific Flyway, and our city lights can be significantly harmful to migrating birds. As mentioned earlier, it can cause birds to migrate too early or late and wander off course towards bright city lights. Then they land in these urban areas without access to critical resources like food, water, shade, shelter. And fatal nighttime collisions with windows and walls occur. Songbirds that vocalize or call during their nighttime flight are far more likely to strike buildings than those that are silent. Birds vocalize more when they become disoriented by light at night, attracting additional member of their flocks, leading to even more bird collisions. The World Trade Center annual 9/11 Tribute in Light is intended to be a wonderful thing, commemorating the victims of the September 11th terror attacks by shining beams of light up into the sky. But this has turned out to be a really bad thing for birds. These lights are visible 60 miles away, 4 miles up into the sky. Fledgling seabirds, migrating songbirds, and other species get pulled into the light and they become trapped. They fly in circles until they're exhausted. Well, how many birds can actually be in these lights? Well, there's some data on that. If we look over to the left, when the lights are off, there was approximately 500 birds within a half a kilometer of the tribute lights, and this is detected by radar. 20 minutes later, when the lights were on, 15,700 birds were within that same area. That's an amazing number of birds. Now, something positive came out of this. Each year, between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m., experience counters from New York City Audubon Society come out. They scan and photograph the beams every 20 minutes and take a count of the birds. Once there exceeds 1,000 birds in the lights get turned off for 20 minutes to free those birds. So something good came of this, but who would have thought such a bad thing could come from something that was intended to be so good? And here's an example of a songbird tragedy that occurred back in May 2017. There was a fatal light collision involving 25 species of songbirds, which unfortunately resulted in 395 bird deaths. And this included warblers, grosbeaks, and others. The birds flew into the dazzling floodlights at the American National Insurance Building, shown here on the skyline of Galveston, Texas. It's important to note that the Texas coast is the first land that these migrants encounter after crossing the Gulf of Mexico. So right away, they're looking for habitat. Birds see reflected images on glass, not a hard surface like we do. Lit interiors can actually look like a resting place, especially if they see plants inside the office. These skyscrapers were illuminated by 20 beams of white light each night. But now they have gone dark. And this was a shared success story between the Galveston County Audubon, Texas, and Houston Audubon organizations. What are the impacts of light pollution on seabirds? Well, seabirds have significant ecological importance, and they help drive ecotourism that supports numerous local economies. Unfortunately, fledglings make up 68 to 99% of all grounding seabirds. And 24 species that are most likely to ground are globally threatened. Burrow nesting seabirds are attracted to and disoriented by artificial light. And light-induced landings can be fatal due to collisions with buildings, electric wires, pylons, fences, posts, or even the ground. Grounded birds may be unable to take off again. Then they become vulnerable to predation. Also, vehicle collisions, starvation, dehydration, even poaching. Scientists hypothesize that our artificial lights drown out the natural light of the moon and the stars for the birds, just like what happens to us. Here's a beautiful image of the Middle Fork River Forest Preserve out in Illinois. This became a dark sky park back in 2009. And here's a perfect illustration of how bad outdoor lighting can affect nesting habitats of birds. I was fortunate to hear the site superintendent of this forest preserve speak at an IDA conference. And he shared the story of being approached by members of the Champaign-Urbana Astronomical Society regarding an idea to protect the forest preserve dark skies by attaining certification as an international dark sky park. And the superintendent talked about how we kind of grumbled about this and, oh no, lights are going to have to be replaced. What else is going to have to happen? Oh boy, you know. However, once they replaced the lights, park rangers noticed that birds were building nests in the trees next to those lights. They had actually been displaced by the former lights, which were not shielded. Those birds were displaced by light pollution. So think about your own backyard. Consider the lighting out there. I recommend shielding light and aiming it down, not up or outward toward the tree. Unfortunately, I have a neighbor next door with a motion light. They had an unfortunate incident with a coyote killing one of their dogs. So they installed a motion light out there, but it comes on all the time and it's aimed outward, shining right into the tree. So no bird will probably ever nest there. In addition to aiming your lights down, and using motion sensors can be a good idea if they're installed properly. Motion lights, use soft white or amber light. And I'm gonna refer to them as 2700K or 2200K CCT, the correlated color temperature. And I'll explain what that is later. So it's just light, right? What's the big deal? It may seem harmless, it's just light, but light pollution has far-reaching consequences that are harmful to all living things. When we take a look at this image here, and I look at this and I go, oh, isn't that so pretty? Look at those beautiful lights. But then when I think about what this is a picture from space. And if you think about flying in a plane, you're 30,000, 35,000 feet above, and you see all that light. You know what that is? That's our street lights, porch lights, parking lot lights, car headlights, office buildings, commercial signage, and billboards. Do we really need light that is so bright it's seen from space? Responsible outdoor lighting reduces light pollution. It leads to a better quality of life for all living things, and it starts with a good lighting ordinance. In San Diego County, the light pollution chapter is part of the municipal code. Its purpose is to minimize light pollution. It allows county citizens to view and enjoy the night environment, and it allows unincorporated communities to be recognized by the International Dark Sky Association as dark sky communities. And that happened because Julian worked with the county to create the new Zone C, dark sky friendly lighting zone in the county's ordinance. The light pollution chapter also protects astronomical research at the Palomar and Mount Laguna observatories from the detrimental effects of light pollution. Now, some think that these observatories, that they're not doing anything anymore, they're just fixtures there. That's not true. There is still very important astronomical research taking place at both Palomar and Mount Laguna observatories. For good measure, I've included an image of what would be compliant and non-compliant according to the light pollution chapter, we see here this facility with these bright lights. Those are probably wall packs, shining light everywhere. And if you were to try to pull into this parking lot at night, it would be hard to see, even with all that light, because it's too much light. But when these fixtures were shielded, you can see how nicely it's lit in front of the doors, but you don't have that glaring light shining in your eyes. In San Diego County, as I mentioned, there's a couple of different lighting zones. Mostly everything is in Zone B, which is their standard lighting regulations. But around Palomar and Mount Laguna observatories, there's a 15-mile circular radius, which is Zone A, where the lighting regulations are a little more restrictive. Then we have Zone C, which applies to Julian and Borrego Springs. Now, I just put that circle there to make it easy, but the actual Zone C would be the perimeter of that actual community. And for good measure, I've included where the Anstein Audubon Nature Preserve is near Vista and the Silverwood Wildlife Sanctuary near Lakeside. Those fall within Zone B. Here's just a quick look at part of the San Diego County lighting ordinance. There's different classes of lighting. We're looking at Zone C, the dark sky zone. Class 1, where the color rendition or the ability to view color is important. Class 2, safety and security, and Class 3 is decorative lighting. There's different requirements for shielding, the maximum amount of light you could have, which is measured in lumens, and also the color temperature, which is important to note. This dark sky requires 3000 K color temperature or less. And this falls in line with what the American Medical Association started to say was the best thing to have. Back in 2017, they issued some warnings about this to not exceed 3000 K, mostly for street lights, but really any outdoor lighting. One thing to note too is the text is spelled out here. For Class 1 and Class 3 lighting, it should be extinguished within 2 hours after sunset or within 30 minutes after the close of business. In the city of San Diego, we also have a lighting ordinance, and it's actually a fairly good ordinance. The downside is a lot of people don't know about it, and right now the city is not enforcing it. Our city's lighting ordinance indicates that light fixtures shall be installed in a manner that minimizes the negative impacts from light pollution, including light trespass, glare, and urban sky glow, in order to preserve enjoyment of the night sky and to minimize conflict caused by unnecessary illumination. Some key things are that light should not trespass onto surrounding properties. Basically, your light should stay on your own property. The outdoor lighting color temp shouldn't exceed 4000 K. We all know now this really should be changed to 3000 K. And most lights should be turned off between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we all did that? Be able to see the stars. If you want to know what your light ordinance is, you can actually look at the IDA chapter website at sd-darksky.org under the resources tab. You know, we need night, just like we need sunlight. But what if we blotted out sunlight, like we're blotting out our night sky? You know, if we look at the sun, we could go blind. That's bad, right? If we're out there too long, it could burn up our skin. You know, why don't we just put a tarp over everything and protect ourselves from that big bad sun? Sounds like a good idea at first, right? But if we had a tarp and blocked sunlight, our flowers wouldn't grow. We wouldn't be able to enjoy flowers. Our garden wouldn't be able to produce food. This sounds absurd, doesn't it? But isn't this exactly what we're doing by blotting out our night sky, our stars, with light at night? You know, we've evolved to need bright days and dark nights in order to keep our circadian rhythm balanced. And even though blue light has been getting a bad rap, it does have its positive. It comes from the sun, first of all. And those waves of particles make the sky appear blue, which is beautiful. But blue light is also associated with better mental alertness, mood, and reaction time. And this is great, but it's a good thing during the day, not at night. Artificial light is being linked to breast cancer. Women in developed countries are 5 times more likely to develop breast cancer. According to researchers in Israel, women living in well-lit neighborhoods were 37% more likely to suffer from the disease than women living in dark areas. Working the night shift has been classified as a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, and that's due to circadian disruption caused by exposure to light at night. Diabetes, heart disease, daytime fatigue, all linked to exposure to light at night. This little postcard illustrates what we're hearing a lot lately. Don't look at your phone at night, blue light, that's bad. And it really, there's a lot of effects from this. But what if it's not in your control? What if you're outside at night and you're near these bright 4000K city streetlights that tell your body it's daytime? Well, that's not a good thing, right? Again, I'll mention that warning issued by the AMA back in 2016. It's not good to have color temperature over 3000K CCT at night. If you're concerned about this, like I am, you can advocate locally. Encourage your city or municipality to replace the bright white 4000K streetlights with the warmer 2700K. And if you're having trouble with trespassing lights from neighbors, you can, talk to your neighbor, of course, please. That's the first thing to do. But if your neighbor won't cooperate, and your health is at risk, then you may need to request enforcement of your local lighting ordinance. Daylight white bulbs are not for nighttime use. So not only in the street light, when I got a new refrigerator a couple of years ago, I immediately took out those white bulbs and replaced them with the soft white bulbs. Because if I went into my refrigerator in the evening, which I shouldn't be doing, but I do, I didn't want to be dosed with daylight, at 9 o'clock at night, opening my fridge. So think about things like this around the house, what we do have control of. You can find the color temperature on the label. It's now a requirement for LED lights. So you'll see that in the warmer colors are soft white, or the more yellow or amber. And another thing to note is brightness, where we used to use wattage, is now really classified as lumens because the wattage has changed so much with the implementation of LEDs. Our circadian rhythm is a 24-hour internal body clock that tells us when we need to be awake, when we need to sleep. It also helps control mood. It also controls hunger. It's not good to eat at night, but it's really important to not expose yourself to light at night where possible. So the bottom line, we need sleep. To sleep, we need darkness. Dark is not bad. Dark equals good night. It's not only humans that are impacted by light pollution. Plants also suffer. This is a tree in New York, and photoperiodism tells the tree when to shed its leaves due to seasonal cues and changes. But this light from the street light, if you follow that light right here, those leaves didn't fall off yet because that light's on all night long. You think, what's a big deal? They'll fall off later. But having the light stay on, having the trees rather, having these leaves stay on the tree past when they're supposed to fall can actually cause disease and actually could kill the tree. So it's important that plants also have darkness. Pollinators die from exposure to light at night. We all know about moths, being attracted to light, and they can actually fly around until they get exhausted and die, and instead of pollinating, our plants. And the other thing is they can become, predators can get them too when they're circling around the light like this. And something unfortunate that I recently read about was the migrating monarchs have been added to an endangered list. Moths make up a large percentage of our pollinators, but also other insects do as well. Artificial light at night distracts them from their job, making them easier prey. Researchers at the University of Cincinnati found that butterflies roosting at night near a porch light or a street light can become disoriented the next day. This artificial light can impede the molecular processes responsible for the butterfly's remarkable navigational ability and trigger the butterfly to take wing when it should be resting. I think I enjoy seeing monarch butterflies. I've seen them around lately, and I'm assuming they're migrating. I'm going to do some more research into that. These beautiful, amazing creatures are being threatened, and their very existence possibly extinguished by a porch light. Wow, the impacts of light pollution. Many cactus species bloom only in darkness, and they're pollinated by nocturnal insects or small animals like moths and bats. Sea turtle hatchlings can head inland towards bright lights at gas stations, hotels, or condos near the beach, instead of out to the ocean. When they hatch, their instinct is to go to the light, which should be the moonlight and starlight. But right now, that's not always the case. When they head the wrong way, they can be run over by cars or picked off by predators. You know, a small number of these turtles actually make it out to the ocean to have a full life. So is there a solution to all this light pollution? Aha, yes, there is. So the IDA doesn't sell lighting, but they do work with manufacturers and distributors to have IDA dark sky approved lighting available. And you can go to darksky.org and find, it's called the Fixture Seal Approval. It's a database of all this lighting. And it's showing 2 pictures here of the different kind of lights. There's a lot more available than there used to be. And they don't really cost more than other lights. IDA also came up with 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting. Light should only be on when it's needed. Light only where needed. Use the minimum brightness, not the maximum. And use warm color light that's fully shielded, pointing the light downward. Protecting the night sky starts with you. And this is a postcard the IDA has. And on the back, it has a picture of from space of the light pollution on North America. You know, it says, stop light pollution now. But the most common rebuttal when we talk about dark sky lighting is dark is associated with bad, fear. We fear the dark. It's lighting and crime. We need light to keep ourselves safe and keep criminals away. But brighter is not always better. Take a look at this image here. There's that super, super bright light. Well, that's really good, right? Keeping everything safe. Maybe that's not so. When you shield the light, there was a gentleman standing right in that gate. Let's look at that again. Bright light. Wow. So criminals can hide in dark shadows created by bright lights and glare. The illusion of safety. So let's talk about that. Security lights provide this illusion of safety, but they don't actually increase safety. I'm going to read a quote from Paul Bogart's book, The End of Night, which I'll show you in a moment. Studies bear this out. Light allows criminals to choose their victims, locate escape routes, and see their surroundings. Goes on there to say, there are thousands of little villages in England with no street lights. Are they hotspots of crime? No, they are not. When you see crime on television, they're the brightest places in Britain, and they are the most crime-ridden places. So what's the conclusion? Does light prevent crime? Of course not. It's rubbish. Are dark sky communities hotbeds of crime? Nope. You think about Sedona, Arizona, Flagstaff, now Julian, criminals are not flocking there in droves because they're, reducing the amount of light they spray up into the sky. It's just not true. And actually here, this is a good thing to point out. If you look at this motion light here at the left, for $29.99, you can not only blind yourselves, but you can light up the whole 2-block range around your house. Isn't that great? Motion lights are terrific, and we promote them for dark sky lighting, but they need to be installed properly. And daylight motion lights, which are most prominent, I think it would be hard to find one that's not daylight bright. They really, on the package, they show them like this, but you really want to aim them downward, not the way they show on the package. Sometimes this could involve having to put it in actually upside down. So here's another example of brighter not being better. This is an AutoZone in my City Heights, San Diego neighborhood. where they installed these bright wall pack lights. And if you'll notice, there's a street light right here in the foreground that is not lit. This is probably one of those street lights that detects when it's night and comes on. Well, because of the AutoZone lights, it's never night. And that street light never comes on, leaving this bus stop completely in the dark. If you're worried about safety, well, the research urges some critical thinking about lighting and safety. We don't have time to go into all this, but it's just a small sampling. You know, the Chicago alley project, crime increased when alleys were lit. And they did have a caveat that could have been because now people can see the crime. But if you think about it, why would a criminal go walk into a darkened alley, you know, to do something if they can't even see? It just doesn't make sense to me. I'll look at the bottom line here below. This was a study by the Department of Criminal Justice at the University of Maryland. And this was, I believe, 20 years of research, or they researched data for a 20-year period. We have very little confidence that improved lighting prevents crime. And I can say from my own personal experience, most of the crime that I have experienced or seen in my neighborhood here, it's been under the street light where bright light is. The van in front of my house, a van was broken into. I don't have my porch light on, so it's dark on the sidewalk. Well, they didn't break in on the dark side on the sidewalk. They broke in on the light side on the street where there was the street light and hundreds of watts of light from the apartment building across. So I thought, well, there you go. You know, they needed light to see to break in. We all have a right to experience night. And here's some ways that you can help. Talk to your neighbors, friends, and family about light pollution and the concerns you have. You know, we all come at this from a different angle. If you have time, I highly suggest reading The End of Night. It's an awesome book by Paul Bogart. It covers all the different aspects of light pollution. You can check it out of a local library, or you can order it online. You can visit the IDA and JDSN websites, where there's a lot of information about light pollution, and actually some of the articles that I referenced to provide the information about the harmful effects to birds. And also, I didn't mention it, but your Audubon websites as well. The National Audubon Society has a lot of information about the Lights Out program and the harms of artificial light pollution on birds. If you haven't been to one, I highly suggest attending a star party. Go out there and get the experience of the natural night sky, you know. And you can visit a dark sky place, such as a national park, or one of the places I mentioned earlier that we have here in San Diego County. And I just love this slogan the National Park System has: half the park is after dark. Well, we have a right to experience night, and so do migrating birds. This is a picture I took of downtown San Diego a couple of weeks ago when I was picking up my husband at the airport. And you can see this example of sky glow. But what if this was a star-filled sky? You know, they're up there. We just can't see them. This would allow our birds to safely migrate at night. What a beautiful thing that would be. So following this presentation, our local IDA chapter, we had our chapter meeting this past Monday, and we are on board. We are hoping to work with our local Audubon chapters to implement a Lights Out initiative for San Diego County. And we could start out small and grow this for our spring migration. Lights Out for birds during peak migration occurs in the spring and fall. Most birds in North America are migratory. 70% of terrestrial recurring birds are migratory, and 80% of those migrate at night. And as you can see here from the map shown, we are on the Pacific Flyway. And if you'll notice, look at these logos here, IDA and Audubon, again, working together. Lights Out programs help provide safe passage for nocturnal migrants. This is another flyer, or little graphic from Tracy Aviary. And they've been great about sharing this information with us. They will probably allow us to just change this for our San Diego if we'd like. Every year, millions of birds die colliding with needlessly illuminated buildings. And you can help by turning out lights at 11 p.m. or earlier, if you can. Shield light and aim it down. Use motion sensors, but aim them properly and try to find ones that are not daylight bright. Use warm amber color light. Now, a lot of the Audubon, or not the Audubon, some of the lights out programs talk about closing your blinds and keeping light in. This is one thing that I have a conflicting feeling about, because when blinds are closed, then we're not doing neighborhood watch. But again, it depends on how bright your indoor lighting is. The building across the street from me is 2 stories. And when they have their blinds open, their ceiling lights actually shine out into my house, because, you know, I can see it. If you see the light, it's shining on you, you know. But in that case, it would be nice if they closed their blinds. But then again, if there's trouble outside, it's nice to be able to look out and, you know, keep an eye for neighborhood watch. So here's a Philly lights out program. They created these yard signs that people could put up on their front lawn, promoting turning out lights at night. And then I've also included some examples, again, of bad lighting, you know, unshielded bulbs, white bulbs, again, light just going everywhere, as opposed to a good light. They do have shielded motion lights. And again, with these, when mine was installed on my garage, the electrician shined them straight out at the house across the street. I pointed them down, then he put them up again, and I pointed them down again. So, you know, even if you have someone else install it for you, you know the right way to install it. And it should be facing downward, where hopefully you can't see the light element itself. You just see the light where it's being cast on the ground. Use warm color lights and aim it down. And here's another little way that this can be promoted. Same thing we've already talked about, keeping indoor light indoors, motion sensors, aiming down, turn off lights that aren't necessary. Here's a little quote I came up the other day that I thought was kind of catchy. I'll share it with you. Turning in, why not turn it off? Now, string lights. This is coming up a lot lately. Everybody loves these party string lights. String lights are pretty, but not at 3 a.m. There was a recent article in the, I think it was in the New York Times, where one of the quotes was that someone contributed to the article is, you know, why do we need to light a shrub at 2 a.m.? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So check your local outdoor lighting ordinance. If you're having a problem with string lights or other lighting, the first thing we recommend is talk to your neighbor about it. And there is information on the IDA website about a letter to your neighbor or how to have a conversation with your neighbor. And you can also get IDA pamphlets. If you want to reach out to our local IDA chapter, you can go to our website and submit something on the contact screen. I'd be happy to share some pamphlets with you about the different components of light pollution and their harms. And we'll be coming up with the lights out flyer that you can also share with your neighbors. You can also certify your home as being dark sky friendly. And I'm not going to read this again because I've already said it 3 or 4 times, but responsible outdoor lighting. And this graphic just shows it all. You know, if you look at the graphic on the left, this is good lighting, you know, and you could see the stars in the sky. And again, if you're turning in and nobody's coming over, well, turn off that porch light too. Why not? You know, keep that money in your pocket. But you know, what we're seeing a lot more of is what's happening on the right here, just light for light's sake. There really is no purpose to a lot of that lighting shown there. So the question that we pose is, what do we want to see at night? A bunch of bright glaring lights or billions of twinkling stars? The choice is ours. We can flip the switch on light pollution. This is a problem that is easy to fix. You know, it doesn't cost anything to flip a light switch off. You know, we can do it for the birds. May you enjoy a tranquil, star-filled night. I thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you found this information helpful. I'll be providing some resources. There's a really good bird talk about artificial light at night from a woman from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And I'll share that information with Joni, and hopefully this can be posted. And there's a tool called Birdcast that you can actually look at during bird migration and see where birds are migrating. I believe this is done by radar. So really, technology is just amazing nowadays. And there's some other resources as well, but I'll go back to the slide because it's so pretty. I don't know if we have time for questions. Should I stop the screen share?
Yeah, go ahead and stop it. And anybody have any questions for Cathy?
I have a comment.
Okay.
It was just like a week ago, I think, at the one of the Padres games. There was, I think it was a white-fronted goose. Well, it was attracted by the light and stopped the game. I never heard what happened to it, but they took it off the field and presumably it continued on its migration.
I think it was up in Dodgers Stadium, actually, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to see.
But yeah, that sounds like a great example of how the lights attract birds in an inappropriate way and kind of throws them off course. And it's kind of amazing. I don't know, it may be a little less here than in the East, but there are a lot of birds that migrate at night, most of them, I think. And if you were to go outside at night during migration and had like a really good microphone, you would be amazed at how much sound you would pick up of these calls of birds that are flying over. Most of us don't even have any idea they're there, but people do studies on this, and it's just quite incredible. So having all these lights really does detract. And I know a lot of people are concerned about safety. So I think something we can really learn from tonight is, you know, it's not that you have to do completely without lights, but you aim them the right way, you have warm lights, you minimize how many you have, don't point them upward, and that really makes a big difference. And, you know, just like the habitat at home, and we've talked before about having plants in our gardens that attract birds, having lighting that is appropriate, that doesn't harm wildlife is just as important as that is.
Yeah.
Sorry, so thank you, Cathy, for that presentation. That was very informative. I just wanted to ask the partnership with the IDA and Audubon. I think you mentioned you're not going to really go towards the urban San Diego area at this time. Maybe I missed it, but which areas are you targeting, or I'm just curious what the initial steps are.
Yeah, so what we plan to do is do a San Diego County initiative. Rather than having each area do their own program, you know, we'll do a San Diego County initiative. We do have the possibility of putting up a website on our San Diego County chapter IDA webpage. Unless if Audubon wanted to do that, we would certainly defer to you. So this is generally more an Audubon program, but we would be happy to put up an initial page this year because we are kind of already into the migration. I just don't want to wait till spring. I just feel like if we get something going, it's better than nothing. You know, if we're posting on our website, if we're emailing people, if we're putting it on Facebook, again, that's better than nothing. So like I'm in the city of San Diego, so I will be looking at trying to work with my city council person, the mayor's office. They also send, what we talked about here was residential lighting, but there's also another aspect of that is working with building associations.
Yes.
So if you look at the Philly Lights Out program and some of the others, San Francisco had a nice website. They actually list businesses that they have contacted in these buildings, you know, have turned off, you know, unnecessary lighting at night. So we're hoping to do that. I don't know, you know, how far we'll get. I think we need to understand from Audubon, it would be great to know what birds are migrating. Let's get some pictures of those birds up on the webpage. Let's not have this be abstract, you know, let's really say, you know, look, this is who's coming through here. This is amazing. And then also, you know, the fact that as far Audubon may know, you know, that we have not had one of these tragic bird collision incidents, and that would be a good thing if we haven't. But, that's why we want to do this. We don't want to find out, that several hundred birds hit, one of our downtown San Diego buildings or something in UTC area, where
Yeah.
they buildings, so.
Mhm.
But, so like Julian will do something in Julian, Fallbrook would promote in Fallbrook. I would be I'd be great to have a team of people in the city of San Diego. Now, there's so many other municipalities, that we're talking about here in the county. But, so hopefully we can grow this, but I think we'd promote it as a county-wide effort.
I love this. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, the number of migratory birds coming through San Diego is, it's spectacular. The images from Birdcast are impressive too. Like you said, the concrete images show, not abstract, show the birds, the images of the birds, but the Birdcast, you can visualize how many birds are in the sky at night. It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you enjoyed some, I kind of gave a general presentation here, but the talk that Julia gave, which I'll give the links to Joni, that was, specifically, about birds. That was just, and about lights out as well. But that was really an excellent presentation.
Oh, what was this?
It was a presentation. We have these monthly IDA advocate meetings. And there's different speakers on different topics. And there was, let's see, it was on one of the last slides here. Let me see. Julia Wang. So she's the Birdcast project leader at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And she gave us a presentation. Actually, I can probably put the link in the chat.
Yes, I'd love that.
Let's see. Yeah. So I just popped the link in the chat. I have so much information, I can't sift through it anymore.
That's awesome.
And we have a few other questions in the chat I'd like to mention. One was, what other places are you taking your talks out? Are you talking to other areas of the public, or are you primarily working with Audubon, or?
For Lights Out, I would like to work with Audubon again, because this tended to be an Audubon, although like Tracy Aviary is doing it, so it's not, specific only to Audubon, but I wouldn't want us to do it as an IDA chapter without the support and coordination of the Audubon chapters here. But there is interest from the Vulcan Mountain Foundation. They have expressed an interest. They're in Julian, and they do a lot with wildlife, and they're very interested in working with us on on this project. And I have not even begun yet to reach out. I have a whole list of organizations, San Diego Canyonlands. I mean, there's just so many. Project Wildlife. There's so many organizations that would probably be interested in supporting this, promoting it, partaking. And
then one person observes that the graphic that you showed of the map with all the lights in the United States, it seemed to appear that the central southeast area of the US had the most light pollution. Is that accurate?
Was that there was another question too, about the county lighting. There's a couple of things in the chat. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. So are we talking about the image, not the Birdcast image, right? Where we
right, the one that had the US map and it had all the white showing, that was all the lights.
Okay. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So that, yes. So I do see that. I don't know if I want to reshare that real quick.
Looks sort of like it's Atlanta would be the one city I know of in that area. I just don't know why that whole area, I don't think of it as being that urban. But maybe it is.
Oh, I popped out. Yeah, I definitely know that looking at these light pollution maps, that definitely the east, the east side of the US is definitely more closely populated, than the West. And let's see,
I
yeah,
wonder if they're just even worse about outdoor lighting than, it seems to me that, like, I know Borrego Springs is so proud to be a dark sky community. And I think either Julian or some other mountain town has also worked on getting that designation.
yes, that's correct. Julian did in May of 2021
Mhm.
attain their dark sky community certification.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah, and I think just in the West in general, I know it doesn't feel like it because we live in a very populated area, but there's a lot of open space in the West as compared to the East. So there are a lot of dark areas, even though for us, we don't realize it. But if you drive out to the desert, there's a lot of open space, and therefore you can actually see stars out there.
Mhm.
I had another comment. Rancho Santa Fe's dark sky rules are under attack from residents who argue against them based on the perceived safety issues you mentioned, and the argument that night lighting of trees is beautiful. So that's a little bit of a fight we have on our hands, I guess, trying to convince folks otherwise.
yeah, that is tough. And I can say too, I'll admit it, seeing Christmas lights and, lights, I used to put lights in my string of, white, like yellowish Christmas lights in the back, and I wouldn't turn them on now. I'd probably start a fire, but, it was pretty, but I would only have it on if I was sitting out there utilizing that light. I wouldn't leave it on, when I'm in the house. So I think that's a key difference.
Yeah. Okay, well, it looks like our time's a little bit over, so I'd like to thank you once again, Cathy, and I know you'll be sending me some links, and I will send them out when we distribute the recording for folks that weren't able to make it or people that want to watch it again.
Great. Thank you so much. I so appreciate, the time.
You're welcome, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Cathy.
All right. Take care.
Okay, thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Mhm.
All right, bye-bye.